This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, everyone. This is Mary Kurek with Frontrunners Innovate, and I have with me two lovely ladies, both sort of in the same space, in the aging and senior space, but not exclusively, because you've got to put a little bit of health and mental health care in there with all of that. And we're going to get to know them both. But first, I want to introduce you to Lin Schulze, who's my co-host today. Lin and I have known each other for a long time.
Long time.
Lin and I are like twins. This whole aging space thing. I've been on shows that she had produced. And
That's right.
So am mine. And has been in the aging space for a long time. And oddly enough, I met her first when my grandmother was in a facility where she was working in a senior care facility. And now she has moved closer to where I'm located and serves as the Friends of Aging nonprofit president, and has for a few years. And that is a nonprofit that I co-founded with a lady who was the director of our senior services and aging department some years ago in Carter County. And I just felt like Lin would be wonderful to bring forward because she is actually marketing director at a facility here in the Morehead City area in North Carolina. And our guest today, our interviewee, is someone who has some extensive experience from a standpoint of maybe caregiving and service provider and just some personal experience, and has authored a book with some helpful information for families, caregivers, and anybody who works professionally with seniors, and with the attitude of thinking about it from a holistic standpoint, more or less, and from a spiritual standpoint. So I want to welcome Lin Schulze, and welcome Linda McDougall. So thank you very much for being here. So, Lin, was there anything else that I missed to introduce you with? You want to share?
No, I think you've done very well. That's pretty much me.
All right. We will drop links to how you can communicate with Lin into, in our interview information blocks. So you'll have that. But let's get to Linda. And Linda, share a little bit about your background and what brought you into writing this book, writing all the writings that you do, and the type of work that you're doing, specifically from the standpoint of how you're doing it, because it's not the usual way that people interact with seniors, I think. So give us a little spin on you.
Well, as I said prior to our opening here, my mother was the one that kind of got the bug in me, simply because she was so afraid of dying herself that she made me kind of afraid of dying. So I knew at some point I would be working with seniors if I lived long enough to do so, and I have done so. So from that point on, I worked with the developmentally disabled for a lot of my past careers at the state hospital and other levels. The last thing I did with the developmentally disabled was I was a advocate for the state of Hawaii's developmentally disabled. So, and then I transitioned back to San Diego. I was with my husband, who was military at the time, my ex-husband. And transferring back there, nobody wanted to pay me anything. And what was so funny is they told me going to Hawaii, I would have to take a huge pay cut. I took a leap, not a cut. And I came back and took the cut.
Oh, wow.
So I was trying to find something that I could take with me wherever I went. So the Navy happened to be offering some training, so I got trained as a massage therapist and holistic health practitioner. That is basically where my thought process comes from now, is from actually working with them, seeing what isn't being done for them, what needs to be done for them, and from that perspective.
Now, this book this is not the first book you've written, or is
yes.
It is the first book. For some reason, I was thinking that you had written one prior to this. What prompted you to put it in writing, to put all that you know in writing?
I had put it a lot in writing many years ago, but it was not edited. It was not done professionally. It was horrible. So during the pandemic, I decided this is the time.
Yeah.
I added a lot of experiences that I had had since putting that book out there, and put it out professionally. And it was funny because it was hard to stop putting stuff in. And I finally told myself, just stop. Just stop.
I've got it sitting in front of me. Let me look and see how many pages you got to. Okay, yeah. It's not quite 200, but yeah. I think you did well. What I like is how you have it segmented out. We talked about that a little bit beforehand and actually in a previous conversation. Tell us how you decided to put this together and the types of information or the primary message that you wanted to get across to people.
Well, many, many years ago, and a time or two since then, I was introduced to a method of writing that appealed to me because I have trouble collecting and putting information cohesively together so that it makes a lot of sense. And I was introduced to a method where you come up with a word, and spirit was mine. And then for each of those letters, you get a main title for a chapter. And then you ask yourself 30, I think it was 30 questions, and then pare it down to 10 or 15 after that and answer those questions. And that's exactly what I did for the book. And it made lots more sense that way. I could focus on a small segment at a time. So that worked for me anyway. What was the rest of your question? I forgot.
Well, that's the primary message that you wanted to get across, because I feel like this, it's all going somewhere. This is getting people to a place.
The primary problem I see is a lack of awareness, a lack of understanding of what senior years are like. A lot of people are young who work in the space and they have no clue because nothing's ever happened to them. You know, and that's great, but as we age, things happen. And so be aware of who's in front of you, be aware of looking at them and figuring out what they may need if they can't tell you or won't tell you, and some won't. A lot of seniors don't want to bother people.
My grandmother was one of those. She was afraid people would treat her differently if she complained about anything.
Yep,
You know,
and I think that's very true in the homes in particular, because they can fire somebody in their house.
Yeah.
But they don't have that ability if somebody's being nasty.
They won't bring me breakfast if I complain about the bananas. Lynn knows about this. Lynn, you know, I'm sure I could see you going, yes, I know this. I know this.
Right. Exactly.
Tell us where the gap is. Where are you seeing the gaps?
Well, I think information is power. And I think also we're dealing with kind of aging is out of sight, out of mind. I look in the mirror, I'm okay. I don't see the aging process, so I don't think of what's coming up. And therefore, sometimes you don't look ahead at others as to what they might be going through. But I think what's so impressive is just navigating, as we talked earlier, navigating through this process. And your book is exactly what folks need to pick up and to help them navigate through this. But it sounds like it's very simple, very spelled out, and that's what we need. We need that information ahead of time. But again, we tend to put that off. So information, exactly what you're saying.
So they're in denial. They don't like to look at what's coming.
Right.
No.
Right.
Well, I think, from being someone who has had to put people in facilities, older relatives and that sort of thing, it is quite a transition. And I know Lynn sees that every day. So Lynn, how many people are in the facility that you are a part of right now that you're working with?
We have 73.
73. Of those 73, how many are memory care?
23.
23. And is that a full memory care unit then for you? 23?
Right now it is full. With the configuration we have, it is full. Yes.
Okay.
And it's a hard process. It's a hard transition, as we talked. And somebody I talked to today, I said, it's not only hard on the resident, it's hard on the family. Most definitely. So it's not an easy transition, but again, for their physical health, their mental health, being in this environment, it's just so rewarding for me, but so good for the residents, for the socialization, for as we're talking, their physical health, but their mental health as well.
Yeah. I think that where I wanted to get to in Linda's book is the section I is for infirmity and identity. And I wanted you've got a few bullets here, Linda. Why do medication side effects happen to seniors more often? And what problems can cause seniors to take their meds irregularly? How does a life-changing diagnosis affect the mental state? There's a lot of key bits and pieces there to chew on, to kind of understand, you know, I won't call them the patient, but the person, the older person who you might be working with, no matter what role you're playing in their life. So what is the correlation then between infirmity and identity there? Tell us about that chapter.
Well, a lot of people will curl up if they have a problem that is fairly severe, and they won't be who they were, and they don't see themselves as who they were, and they don't seem to try to be who they were at all. They just kind of curl up into themselves and shrink away. And in some cases that may be necessary. I haven't gone to all those places either. So, but I don't know if you can see, but I have tape on this lens. And I have a tape on that lens because I fell a few years ago. And I hit directly with asphalt on my head. It broke my nose, and 8 weeks later, I ended up with a full-blown retinal detachment and 3 retinal tears. And they couldn't fix it correctly. They tried even a couple of surgeries and nothing really helped it. So what I have is double vision and wavy vision and not clear vision. So it's a mess. But I found recently that if I put an opaque tape here, that cuts out some of the double vision. It used to be if I had a Zoom meeting, people would watch me go back and forth because the Zoom people would suddenly come flashing at me. Yeah, and it was just, whoa. And so it's been interesting, but I could have defined myself as something else with even that. But I still drive. Took me 6 months to decide to drive, even though the doctor said I could right after, but I saw all sorts of things and I said, no, I can't.
Got to follow your gut on that. Yeah.
I'm not getting on the road till I really have to right now. It's pandemic. I don't have to.
Yeah.
So I gave myself a little bit of time to do that. And in about 6 months, I finally did. And I found double headlights, double traffic lights, double everything. It was horrendous. But I persevered. I'm still driving.
Yeah. So you still have your identity, is what you're telling me.
I still have my identity. I'm still me. That hasn't changed. Now, in my genetics, I have Alzheimer's. I have Parkinson's. So I could have either one or both. And one thing I did not know I had, that I now know I have, because it didn't show up in the genetic mapping that I got, I was recently diagnosed with Dupuytren's contraction.
Oh, yeah.
Which is Viking's disease.
Oh, wow.
And I don't have one, I have 2.
Wow. You're special.
I'm
special. You got a double dose.
I've worked with people with Dupuytren's, and unfortunately, those people were so crippled. And they only had it on one side, but it pulled them and it twisted them and it really contorted them. And when I was diagnosed with this, and this is what I was afraid of too. And I went. And when he said, yep, that's what you got, I went, oh, wonderful. And I got it double-sided. I could be torn in half being contorted.
Oh my gosh.
And you do massage. So I'm just wondering how in the world that, plays into it.
It may help because I'm constantly making those
moving.
stretch.
Yeah.
And he said we found it late enough that it probably won't do too much to me,
Yeah.
and that we can dissolve the strands that keep the nodules. I also contacted a supplier that I deal with and said, okay, I'm already taking a certain amount of your enzymes, and I'm taking a certain amount of your natto. Let's give me a double dose and let's see what happens. So I'm now doing double systemic enzymes and double natto, because both of those help
Mm-hmm.
take away scar tissue and excess stuff that doesn't belong to the body. So,
You know, I what I'm hearing too is you almost have to take your own, life over to the point to keep your identity. You just have to kind of keep, yourself as being number one in terms of how you look at taking care of yourself. And it sounds like that's what you've had to do. You've gone in and you've told your doctor with confidence, this is what I'm going to do or what I want to do. And, I've known a lot of older people, my grandmother, definitely one of those, is to go in, and she was waiting for the doctor to tell her, and the doctor was God. So it didn't matter what he said or she said, that was what she was going to do. I'll never forget taking her to the doctor one time, and the doctor was saying, Miss Mary, how are you doing? And she looked right at him and she said, that's what you're getting paid to tell me. Just seemed like, she's almost 100 years old. So she was
Right.
I was taken aback and like, God, what could I say? It was like, okay, little old bitty thing, not even 100 pounds probably. It was just, that's what you're getting paid to tell me.
That's right. I can see her saying
Classic,
that.
classic Miss Mary. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I think at some point you just kind of, as you get older, is keeping yourself in your own skin and knowing yourself well enough to know how you can depend on yourself first, if you've still got your mind and everything about you, to make good decisions for yourself. And when you realize that you can't do that anymore, is to put the resources around you that can be of that help. And that's a failing I see all over the place. I don't know about you, Lynn, but I think there's a failing.
It is.
Yeah, they don't realize that there's resources they do need to put into place, and they need to do it sooner rather than later when they start to realize the problems.
Right. I think it's even more important for the younger generation to get that information, because they're letting their parents with Alzheimer's or dementia or just aging, memory loss, they're forgetting to look at the individual with a disease, and they kind of just couple it as one person, one thing. And it's not, as you're saying, Linda, it's two separate things. And the younger generation needs the knowledge so that they know how to help their parent be a person and have that disease, but let's keep it separate and help. So again, just I think
with
that's
them dealing with the disease instead of
yes,
dealing
yes.
with them as if they were the disease,
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Well, caretakers need to learn not to over caretake, so that the person can be as independent as they can be. They're encouraged to be. And a lot of caretakers just go nuts and because of their own need to feel needed.
Yeah.
Right. But what they don't realize is they're actually enabling that person to regress faster.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
If you want to do everything for me, I'll let you.
I'll let you.
But I'm not going to move forward. Physically, it's So that you're right. The caregivers, and I get it. They want to help, but they have to help that person be a person.
Yes.
So when is the book available for purchase, Linda?
It's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon right now. Is it anywhere like at bookstores, Books a Million, anything like that? It's on Amazon. That's where they can find it. And I think let's share what the different, the SPIR, we know what one of the I's is because I just mentioned it, infirmity and identity. What are what's the other letters stand for, so that they get a sense of what they might be looking at when they come to see the book?
Okay, S is for seniors, and that's just basically giving you the basics of who seniors are, some of the things they're going through, some of the things you need to be aware of. Because again, we're getting a lot of young people that don't haven't been through much, so they don't know. P is for physical issues and pathologies. Excuse me. The first I is for informed inspiration. R is for respect, because you've got a whole universe of people around your people that you have to try and work with and be respectful of. And that can be hard sometimes. I've had those instances. I is for infirmity and identity, and T is for the touch.
T is for tools of touch. Yeah, that's great. And I think that T is tools for touch is not only, I guess it's the massage that you're talking about, but I think people kind of shy away from touching older folks sometimes because they're not really sure how they're going to respond to them. And sometimes older folks don't want to be touched. There's a little old lady that my husband and I kind of help out, and she's almost 90, and she doesn't appreciate being approached. Let's put it that way. Getting too close or touching her when she's not aware that that's fixing to happen. So she doesn't have that ability to anticipate. So it freaks her out, and so when she gets freaked out, she gets mad. She gets really mad. But, like throw a hissy fit man. But and maybe slap at somebody, and the thing is, they just have been provoked. And if the person knew that they didn't want to be touched, then that would have avoided the whole thing. But there's some people that do, that they lack, from not being at home and not being around loved ones, and where they don't get a hug. They, as simple as that, or, for men, shaking a hand, shake their hand, and things like that, like we do in social settings, which we kind of forget when it's in a situation with an older person, maybe who's in a wheelchair or just a walker or something like that. So, yeah, I think
it was their generation. The handshake was their generation, and that's stepping back to their exactly.
Yeah. And we're Southern women, so we hug. That's what we do.
Lots of hugging here. We do lots of hugging.
Not during the pandemic, but normally.
Right.
Right. Well, what I wanted to get to before I ask Linda sort of the next question, while I've got you here, Lynn, are gaps that you might see with seniors, as we were talking earlier, and Linda mentioned that sometimes seniors won't ask for help. Older people will not ask for help. Sometimes they won't. That's one big thing that I think I see that's happening. There are lots of others, but is there one or two big things that you can think of that working with the senior population that you do there that you see that could be a gap that needs to be addressed at some point, however it needs to be addressed?
Right. I think you're right. The biggest is the seniors do not want to ask for help. We have had residents fall and they will lay on the floor. And when we come along and do our checks, I didn't want to bother you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness. So, it's that you're right. They don't want it. And it's their dignity. They're strong. They've run their lives. They've been through a lot. They've run their lives, and now having to ask for help is very hard. Just obviously making the choice to move into an assisted living, it's huge. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, "Gee, I think I'll move into assisted living today." But in 14 years, I've seen that they love it. It does make a difference, but it's that gap of the then and the now. That's the hardest, for sure. But it does work, and some are here just for safety, security, and meals. They still drive. They still do everything for themselves. But some are wheelchair bound, and we have a little more care for them. But I think those are the biggest things. Just realizing it's time for assisted living, and again, families play a large part in that because they're visiting, they're seeing what's going on in the home, what's not going on in the home.
Yeah.
So it's hard, but that's probably the biggest.
Transition point is, I think, families tend to be the transition points, and they've got to be able to recognize when the time is right and have those conversations. I think for most families, that one of the triggers is taking away the keys. When they realize that person can't drive anymore, then that
Right.
starts the conversations, even if it's just amongst the family members, start thinking, now we got to start figuring out, what to do
Right.
on the clock or something like that. So
Exactly.
lots of hard conversations to have, lots of decisions.
Lots of hard. And like I said, we put it off. We don't think about it. And so many times it's because the senior has taken a fall, starts the conversation. And it's,
Take the car keys away. Yeah, the fall is a big one. Yeah.
fall is a big one. Yes. And I try and encourage folks, I don't care if you move in a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, but just come and know your options so that if you take that fall and the doctor says you can't go home, another family member is not making the decision of where. Just know what
options
could happen.
are available to you. Yeah.
Right.
So
Be
lots,
prepared.
conversations and communication and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Linda,
Right.
so you've got this show on the road now with the book. So what's ahead? I feel like there's a lot of impact that can happen with this book, and a lot of good information that could be shared with caregivers and family members, and even the people that are aging themselves. Where do you see this going in the next 6 months? Where would you like it to go?
Would I like it to go? Now that's the better question.
Where would you like it to go?
I would love to see an independent advocate in every home. I have found that people will talk to me, not knowing me from Adam, versus telling the home what's going on with them. Mm-hmm. And I find that extremely weird, but nonetheless, I'm perfectly happy with, I had a lady that talked to me about going up and seeing her room after I did a talk on the vices of mobility devices. So I went up there with her after I was done. And this poor woman, why anybody didn't see this when she moved in is beyond me. She had a pedestal bed. She was an itty bitty lady. She showed me getting into that bed, and I thought for sure she was going to fall face forward and crack her head open because her butt could barely get to the top of that bed. And so she would do all this gyrating just to get the buttocks to a place where she could get a purchase on the bed. Mm-hmm. And then she would throw her legs over so that she could be on the bed. And then she literally clawed her way to the center of the bed. And I went, you gotta be kidding me. Mm-hmm. And I was just blown away that nobody had even thought of this. And if they had somebody like me be with the home on a once a week basis or something that could talk to different clients and be with different clients, to see them in their home environment, they could pick up on these things if they were observant. I mean, this is all about awareness again.
Or even train whoever is closest to that person that gets to see them more often to be able to notice things. I can understand how somebody is that expert with a briefcase from 10 miles away that nobody knows it's going to get further with something than somebody that everybody knows. It's just always the way. But it's because maybe you didn't know, maybe in that particular instance, maybe there was some kind of family heirloom situation with that bed that caused that connection there. But because you don't know it, you're brave enough to say, that bed needs to go and we need to get another. And so then they'll listen to you because it's not safe for her. And you can point out that is not safe. And then that may go further than the daughter who says, I know that Daddy bought you that bed for your anniversary.
But minimum, cut some of that pedestal off.
Right.
But there are those things that that help a family do that, and sometimes it takes somebody who doesn't have that connection that can actually say these things that make a difference. So
sometimes the family doesn't do anything either. I had a Parkinson's client. He had a nurse for a daughter, and I forgot what the other daughter did, but he had two daughters. came and saw him. And he was a tall man, a large man, not fat, just large. And he had a little tiny recliner.
Mhm.
So his knees were up here. He had a little tiny table beside him with a little lamp. That man had to twist his whole body so that he could read underneath that lamp.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So he had Parkinson's already, which wasn't bad enough. And then he had his knees up in his chest, and then he had to twist over and read.
Oh.
And I talked to the daughters, I talked to his caregiver at the time, and she did try to get some risers for the chair. I wish they would have just gotten him a better chair.
Just get a new chair.
Yeah, but the
Right.
risers didn't work, so they gave up on it.
Yeah. And,
And I'm going,
seniors can be very stubborn about that. It could be that it looks really uncomfortable and it's horrible, but if they're glued to it, you are not going to be able. That's the same thing with our 90-year-old woman that we're dealing with. Yeah, if you're not moving her, I don't care what you say.
Right.
So
Exactly.
the thing is now with us is keep the peace no matter what we can, whatever we can do is what we can do. What we can't do, we just try to keep the peace about, so that there's
Right.
not a lot of upset, or drama with it, because that just doesn't serve anybody. But I just think that this is, and I love having my own copy. Thank you, Lynn. That I'll pass along to Lynn. She can, next time I see Lynn at a meeting, we got a meeting coming up in a couple months, and I'll pass it along to her, and she can have it in the library there.
That would be great.
But yeah, I think this is terrific, and I like where you think you want to go with all of this. Who do you think you need to meet to help you move all this forward?
sponsors.
Sponsors. Okay.
Because one of the things I would really like to do with this is to take it into like community talks and community education.
Mhm.
That takes sponsors, because you got to get the place, you got to get all the things in order, and it's kind of a mess. But yes, I would like sponsors.
Speaking, speech sponsors. All right. Well, now everybody knows because we're sharing.
That's right. That's right.
We have a large global audience, and so what we want to say to you is this: if there's something about this book that resonates with you, and you're working in the aging space, or you have some kind of connection to that space in some way or another, where you want to make this available wherever you're at, maybe it's not in the same language, is sometimes you can work with the author and the author's publishing company to see about getting a different version that has a translation on that. Other than that, I use Translate on Google or wherever if I need to to translate documents.
Mhm.
Do take a look at it, and you can get it on Amazon. We're going to provide the link below this video. And so before I say goodbye to everybody else, I'm going to say, if you're watching this on YouTube, go to www.frontrunnersinnovate.com, and you're going to see this interview. You'll see the audio podcast version of it if you're one of those that likes to drive or walk and listen, and that'll be fine too. And we're going to drop in the links for both Lynn and Linda, so that if you have other questions or want to communicate with them, that you'll be able to do that through LinkedIn. So we'll always give LinkedIn and then website information and anything else if they've got social icons they want to share with us and links. We'll do that too. So I say, everybody else, bye-bye. You two stay on with me for a second, and happy front running. Bye-bye.